Please, don't lift my dress, she whispered. Her voice trembled, barely audible, over the patter of rain against the skylight. Logan Whitmore froze in the doorway of the marble bathroom, the steam from the shower curling like ghosts around his feet. At first, he thought she'd fainted. The crash had been sharp and sudden, a sound of bone-meeting porcelain. When he found her crumpled on the floor, her hair plastered to her cheek, blood smearing the pale tiles, he didn't think. He just ran. She was curled in on herself, gripping the hem of her uniform dress with both hands, her knuckles white. Her leg was bleeding. The red had begun to soak through the dark gray fabric, pooling around her hip. And yet she was still holding that dress down, like her life depended on it. Logan knelt beside her. "Eva, you're bleeding. I said don't touch it." Her voice cracked this time, not with anger, but with fear. Raw, ancient. He paused. His instincts as a CEO told him to fix the problem, control it. But this wasn't a boardroom. This was blood and fear and something he didn't understand yet. "You need help. I have to see how bad it is." "No," she whispered. Her eyes were glassy, but locked onto his with desperation. "You don't understand. Please." She looked like a cornered animal. Not someone scared of pain, but someone terrified of being seen. But the bleeding wasn't stopping. "I won't look. I just need to stop the bleeding." And before she could stop him, Logan gently pulled the fabric away from her thigh. That was when he saw it. It wasn't just a wound. It was a scar. No something more deliberate than that. A tattoo, faded, torn, no burned. The skin was gnarled, as if someone had tried to erase something branded into her body. The surrounding tissue was uneven, scarred in streaks that told a story of fire and acid. But faintly beneath the damage, he could still make out what had once been there. A barcode, numbers half missing, and two words that struck him cold. Null property, not for resale. The words were fragmented, parts of them melted into the skin. But they were still legible enough to understand. It didn't look like a tattoo anymore. It looked like an expiration label on a human being. Logan drew his hands back. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to say. Eva turned her head away. The movement was slow, as if her body no longer trusted itself. "You weren't supposed to see that." Her voice was hollow. "I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" "That I made you see it. That I let myself fall. That I let my dress ride up." She closed her eyes. "I should have been more careful." Logan wanted to scream. At who he didn't know. At the world, maybe. At whoever put that on her. At whatever system made someone feel shame for surviving. He moved back slowly, letting her keep the fabric in place again. The bleeding had slowed, but the real damage wasn't physical. Not anymore. "I'll get the first aid kit," he said quietly. "You won't be alone." She didn't answer. He came back with the kit and knelt again, this time a step further back, giving her space. She finally let go of the dress enough to allow him to work, never opening her eyes. Logan worked in silence, pressing gauze, cleaning the wound, avoiding the scar. Not because he was afraid to see it again, but because he knew she didn't want him to. Not yet. The air was thick, not with steam anymore, but with questions. Who did this? Why did she have that? How had she ended up here in his house, folding his towels, washing his floors, humming softly under her breath, like nothing had ever happened? He wanted to ask. But more than that, he wanted her to choose to tell him. When the bandage was done, he stood. "You need to rest." She nodded faintly, still not looking at him. "Thank you," she said, after a long moment. He turned toward the door. When you're ready to tell me what that means, he said softly, I'll listen. Then he left the room, leaving the door open. That night, Logan sat alone in his office, the lights off, city lights flickering outside the high windows. He had built companies, he had negotiated with billionaires, he had argued with senators, but never had he felt as small and unsure as he had on that bathroom floor. Eva Martinez was not just his maid, and whatever that mark on her leg meant, whoever had done that was still out there, breathing, walking free. Logan didn't know yet what it meant, but he knew this much. He couldn't pretend he hadn't seen it, and he couldn't pretend she was just another employee, not anymore. The next morning the house was quiet, too quiet. Logan didn't hear the usual gentle clatter of dishes or the low hum of music that Eva sometimes played while cleaning. He stepped into the kitchen, half expecting to see her at the counter, making tea or folding towels, with that quiet focus she always carried. But the space was empty, and the tea kettle was cold. Upstairs, he knocked gently on her door. No answer. He didn't push, not yet. Instead, he left a small tray outside green tea dry toast, a handwritten note that simply said, "Take your time. I'm here." For the next 3 days, they existed like shadows in the same house. Eva didn't leave her room except late at night, when the sound of her footsteps across the hallway crept through the silence like a ghost. Logan gave her space, but his mind kept circling back to that mark. Null property. Not for resale. It wasn't just cruel, it was systemic. It suggested a process, not a one-time act. He opened his laptop and began searching. Deep web articles, NGO reports, survivor testimonies. And in the middle of it all, a reference to something chilling Project Null, an alleged internal classification system used by unregulated trafficking networks to mark individuals deemed unsellable due to defiance, age, or damage. These individuals were either disposed or passed into black market circuits for torture, debt labor, or organ harvesting. It wasn't fiction, it was real, and someone had done that to Eva. On the 4th morning, Logan found her in the garden. She was barefoot, crouched near a planter, brushing soil around the base of a half-dead lavender bush. She didn't look up when he stepped outside. "I thought you left," she said quietly. "I would never do that." Her fingers trembled slightly, but she kept working. Logan didn't speak for a while. Then he said, "I've been reading. About the barcode, about null status." Eva closed her eyes. "Of course you did. I'm sorry." "No." She looked up at him now. "Don't say that. You have nothing to be sorry for. I didn't want you to know what kind of body I'm living in." Logan stepped forward, slow and careful, until he was beside her. "Your body is not the shame here. The people who did that to you are." She exhaled sharply. "That sounds good." Easy to say when you weren't the one begging in a dark van, with your hands zip-tied behind your back. He didn't flinch. "You're right, I wasn't. But I'm standing here now." She stood up, brushing dirt off her palms, her expression hard. Why are you still here? You saw what I am. That mark. That's not just trauma. That's inventory." Logan's voice was low. "You think that's all I saw? I saw a girl who still protected her dignity while bleeding on the floor. I saw someone who begged not because she was ashamed, but because she still believed she had the right to boundaries. That takes more strength than I've ever seen in a boardroom." Eva blinked. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. She looked away. "You don't have to say things to make me feel human. I'm not completely. I've spent more time being a number than a name." He took a slow breath. Then let me start by calling you by your name. Eva. Her eyes met his. Just that. No more questions, no offers of help, no pity. Just presence. That evening, Logan placed a small sketchbook and a box of pencils on the kitchen table. No note, no explanation. The next morning, the sketchbook was gone. Days passed. The rhythm of the house slowly returned. The dishes began clattering again. The scent of herbal tea drifted from the kitchen. Logan didn't push, but one night as he walked past the open door of the sunroom, he saw her, sitting cross-legged on the floor, head bent over a page. She was drawing. Her hand moved fast, like the lines were chasing her, trying to outrun the past. He leaned against the doorframe, quiet. "What are you drawing?" She didn't stop. "A face. Yours." "Why?" "Because I need to know if you're real." Logan swallowed the lump in his throat. "That's fair." She paused, pencil hovering. "You're not trying to fix me, are you?" "No, I don't think you're broken. I just think you deserve more than silence." Ava stared at him for a moment, then went back to drawing. Her voice was soft. "Me too." That night, Logan sat in his study and stared out at the rain. Something had shifted. Not fixed, not healed, but shifted. A door cracked open where there used to be a wall, and he knew whatever came next, it would not be simple, but it might be worth everything. The morning sunlight filtered through the wide kitchen windows, casting long golden lines across the hardwood floor. Ava stood at the counter, chopping vegetables with slow, methodical precision. Her movements were quiet, almost meditative. Logan watched from the dining room without interrupting. Something about her posture had changed. She was still reserved, still guarded, but there was a small shift in how she occupied the space, like she no longer needed to shrink herself to survive it. After breakfast, Logan found a piece of folded paper on his desk. It was a drawing, a pencil sketch of his face, softened by light, the outline of a window reflected in his glasses. Below the image, written in delicate cursive, were 4 words. "Thank you for staying." He didn't say anything to her, but when she passed him in the hallway, she nodded once, and that was enough. Over the next few days, Logan noticed more drawings appearing around the house. A sparrow perched on the garden fence, the way the light hit the kitchen sink at sunset, a sketch of his dog curled at the foot of the stairs. None of them were signed, but they didn't need to be. He started leaving small things in return. A new set of watercolors on the bookshelf, a tin of chamomile tea near her favorite mug, a photo of the Oregon coast tucked inside her sketchbook. No questions, just gestures. She accepted them with the same quiet grace she used to clean the rooms. And slowly a rhythm returned, but it wasn't the same one they had before. One evening, Logan returned from a late meeting to find Eva in the sunroom. She was painting sleeves, rolled up hair tied back, with a ribbon he recognized as one of his mother's old silk ties. The canvas showed a woman in a red dress, standing on the edge of a cliff, hair blowing wildly around her face. The sea below was violent, but she wasn't afraid. Logan stood silently for a moment before asking, "Is that her Eva didn't look up?" "It's who I wanted to be." Logan nodded. "I think she's already here." Eva finally turned to face him. Her eyes were clear, but her voice trembled just slightly. "What do you see when you look at me?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I see someone who shouldn't have had to survive what she did. But who did? I see someone who refuses to let herself be erased, even when the world tried to reduce her to ink and scars. I see someone brave enough to start again." Ava stared at him for a long moment. Then quietly she said, "You're the first man I've met who didn't look at me like I was either broken or dangerous." Logan stepped forward. "I've been broken too, just not the same way." She looked at him, something softening in her expression. "I know. That's why I trust you." The next day, Eva asked if she could take the afternoon off. Logan offered to drive her, but she declined. When she returned that evening, she placed an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was a copy of her original intake record from the detention facility she had been processed through years ago. Stamped across the top were the words, "No identity found." It was the first time Logan saw her full name, Eva Maria Martinez Solano. She folded the paper back and said quietly, "I want to matter." Logan looked at her. "You already do." The silence that followed was warm, real, and in that moment, something in both of them settled, like two pieces of a puzzle that had been floating just out of reach. That night, as rain tapped gently against the windows, Eva brought him a cup of tea. She sat beside him on the couch, their shoulders brushing. After a while, she leaned her head against his arm. "I used to think I'd never be seen for more than that mark," she said. Logan turned to her. "Then let's paint over it. Not to erase it, but to make sure it's not the only thing people remember." She didn't answer. She just smiled, and for the first time in a long time, it reached her eyes. Logan sat at his desk late into the night, the glow of the monitor casting a pale light across his face as he scrolled through archived news reports and federal data leaks. The name Eva had shared, Project Null, kept surfacing in fragmented files and sealed court documents, always surrounded by redactions and legal obstructions. It wasn't a conspiracy theory, it was real. He dug deeper, following digital trails through nonprofit investigations and anonymous whistleblower blogs. A familiar name kept appearing alongside references to the Texas facility where Eva had once been processed, Sheriff Darren Cole. Once a Border Patrol officer, now a respected sheriff, and recently elected mayor of a small town just outside Portland. On the surface, his record was spotless. Law and order platform community, outreach programs, praised for cleaning up crime in underfunded districts. But buried in a civil case from 8 years prior was a sealed deposition naming him in a loss of custody incident. The complainant was listed only as minor undocumented female. Logan's hands curled into fists as he read. The complaint had been dismissed. No charges filed. Eva had mentioned Texas. This couldn't be a coincidence. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. The man who allowed that system to mark her like property was not only free, he was now in power. Logan picked up his phone and called a contact from his college days, Mira Lane, now a federal investigator specializing in human trafficking. He hadn't spoken to her in years, but she picked up on the second ring. After a brief exchange, he sent over what he had. Mira's response was short. "Don't get involved too deep. He has federal friends. Careful who's watching." Logan looked out the window. The lights of the city blinked back at him like indifferent eyes. He didn't care who was watching, not anymore. The next morning, he found Eva sketching on the back patio. Her feet were bare toes, digging into the wood as if grounding herself. She looked up when she saw him, her gaze questioning. Logan sat beside her, holding out a folder. "I found him." Her fingers tightened around her pencil. Him, the man who ran the facility, the one who let it happen. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak. "His name is Darren Cole. Now he's a mayor. running for Congress next year. He slid the file toward her. It's all in there. She didn't open it. After a long pause, she asked, "And what would you have me do with this?" He hesitated. "Whatever you want. I just thought you should know." Ava stared out across the yard. Her voice was low, steady. "Do you know what it's like to scream for help in a place where screaming means nothing?" Logan didn't answer. She turned to him, eyes sharp. "I begged. I bled. And when I was finally let out, I didn't want justice. I just wanted to disappear." He nodded slowly. "And you have every right to stay disappeared. But if this man is still doing what he did to you to others, you deserve to decide if he gets to keep hiding behind clean suits and clean records." She looked down at the folder. After a moment, she whispered, "I want to burn him down." Logan met her eyes. "Then let's start with truth." That night, they sat in the living room documents spread across the coffee table. Ava read everything in silence, her face unreadable. There were photos, sworn statements, timelines. Logan had tracked Cole's connections to at least 3 now-defunct detention centers and a shell company linked to private transport services for detainees. Everything pointed to a systematic cover-up of abuse and illegal transfer of undocumented minors. Ava leaned back, her voice flat. "No one will believe this. They'll believe you. I'm no one. You're the girl who lived." She turned her head, considering. "And if I speak up, what then? They dig into me. Find I don't have a legal entry, that my identity's held together with fake names and borrowed air. You'll have me," Logan said. "And if you want, we go public, or we go anonymous. But this time you decide what happens to your story. For once." Ava stared at the flames flickering in the fireplace. She didn't answer right away. Then in a quiet voice she said, "Then let's stop whispering. I'm tired of being silent in a world that was happy to pretend I didn't exist." Logan nodded. "And I'm tired of watching men like him win." They stayed there long after the fire burned low, the silence between them, no longer empty but full of intent. Something had shifted again, but this time it wasn't just healing, it was ignition. The first threat came 2 days later. Ava found it taped to the front gate, a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photo, grainy and old, but unmistakable. It showed her maybe 16, sitting on a cot with her head down, wrists, bruised, a barcode freshly branded on her thigh. Scrawled in red ink across the bottom were the words, "Stay quiet or stay buried." She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just walked into Logan's office, handed him the photo, and said, "They know." Logan examined it carefully. The photo wasn't public. Someone had kept records, someone close to Cole. He reached for his phone to call Mira, but paused. They needed to move fast without leaving a trail. They packed that night. Logan drove them out of the city before dawn, taking back roads through the forested hills of Oregon. No phones, no GPS, only a handwritten map and a destination known to no one else. His mother's old cabin, a place untouched since she died 5 years ago. Ava sat silently in the passenger seat, her hand wrapped around the leather strap of her sketchbook, like it was the only solid thing in the world. The road wound deeper into the woods fog, curling between the trees like breath. When they reached the cabin, Eva didn't speak until she stepped inside. "It smells like cedar and loneliness." Logan gave her a half smile. "It's the kind of place that remembers everything." She touched the worn wood of the windowsill, then turned to him. "I'm not afraid of being hunted. I'm afraid of being used." Logan met her gaze. No one will use you again. Not while I'm still breathing. For 3 days they stayed off the grid. Logan worked with Mira through secure lines. Eva painted, but the tension didn't leave. It sat in the corners like a weight neither of them could shake. On the 4th morning, Eva found Logan outside, chopping firewood with a quiet rage. She stood at the edge of the porch watching him. "You think we're safe here?" Logan paused, resting the axe against a stump. "Safer than anywhere else, for now." She nodded. Then she said something he wasn't ready for. "If they find us, I won't run. Not this time." He looked at her, really looked. She wasn't trembling. Her eyes were clear. "There's a strength in you, Eva," he said. "One they never managed to break." She stepped off the porch and approached him. They broke plenty, just not the part that matters. That night she woke him with a whisper. "Someone's outside." Logan was up instantly. He grabbed the pistol from the nightstand and moved silently to the window. A dark shape stood at the edge of the tree line. Too still for an animal, too bold for a hiker. Eva stood behind him, arms crossed tightly over her chest. They sent someone. Logan handed her the backup pistol and nodded once. "Don't hesitate." She didn't. The next hours passed in slow, tense silence. The shape eventually disappeared, but the message was clear. They were being watched. Logan knew it was only a matter of time. Mira confirmed it the next morning through an encrypted message. "Your names were flagged. Someone inside law enforcement leaked the witness list. Cole knows." Eva read the message and whispered, "Then let's stop hiding. I'm ready." Logan looked at her. "Are you sure? Because once we go back, this doesn't end quietly." Eva looked out at the trees swaying in the wind. "Nothing about my life has been quiet. Let's end it loudly." Logan reached for her hand. "Then we burn it down together." They left that night, headlights off for most of the drive. By the time they reached Portland, the storm was already waiting. And this time they were not running from it. They were walking straight into its eye. They returned to the city under cover of night, slipping into Logan's penthouse through the private garage, avoiding cameras and outside eyes. The silence in the apartment was suffocating, not from fear but from anticipation. The next steps would not be reversible. Eva placed her sketchbook on the kitchen counter, then turned to Logan. "I want to speak. Not as a victim, not behind a screen, but as myself." Logan stared at her, searching for hesitation, but found none. He nodded. "Then we'll find a way to make them listen." Over the next 2 days they prepared. Mira helped arrange a confidential interview with a journalist known for exposing corruption in law enforcement. Eva would remain off camera for now, but her words would be recorded. Her evidence logged, her story made permanent. But the night before the interview, Eva couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony, wrapped in one of Logan's shirts, staring out over the glittering city skyline. Logan stepped beside her quietly. "You okay?" She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "You ever wonder who you'd be if no one had ever hurt you?" He exhaled slowly, all the time. "Do you regret becoming this version of yourself?" Logan looked at her, his eyes tired but warm. Not anymore. She looked at him, then really looked. "I don't want to be saved, Logan, I know. I don't want to be your charity, your redemption, your purpose." He nodded. "You're not. I want to be seen. Fully. Even the damaged parts, especially those. I want you to kiss me, not because you feel sorry for me. I want you to kiss me because you see me and want me anyway." He didn't say anything. He just stepped forward and did exactly that. The kiss was slow, careful, but certain. There was no pity in it, no urgency to fix or possess, only recognition, only choice. When they broke apart, Eva rested her forehead against his chest. I didn't think I could ever want again. Logan's hand moved gently down her back, then once slowly. There's no finish line here. She smiled against him, and for the first time since they met, she felt her breath come without the weight of memory pressing on it. The next day, the interview was recorded in a secure location. Eva's voice was steady. She told everything, the branding, the barcode, the mark burned over her identity, the silence she had been forced to swallow, and the man who had facilitated it all, Darren Cole. Mira took the footage and evidence and handed it over to a federal task force. Within 48 hours, whispers turned into headlines. Logan and Eva watched it unfold from the safety of the penthouse, neither speaking as Cole's face appeared on national news, the words alleged cover-up in detention center flashing below. That evening, Eva found Logan in the sunroom, staring out at the dusk. She sat beside him and opened her sketchbook. Inside was a new drawing. A woman standing at a microphone, shadowed but tall, her mouth open in mid-speech. Her eyes were wide, not with fear but with conviction. "This is who I want to be now," Eva said. Logan turned to her. "She's already here." They sat in silence for a while, letting the storm outside rage. It was no longer a threat. It was just noise. The city changed in the days that followed, or maybe it was only how Eva saw it now. Headlines ran across every major outlet, some sympathetic, others skeptical, but all repeating the same names, the same patterns, the same rot, beneath polished badges. Eva watched quietly as more survivors came forward, each one carrying a scar shaped like hers, each one confirming what the world had once called exaggeration or fiction. But with each new story, the shadows shrank. Darren Cole denied everything at first. His official statement called the allegations political smears manufactured by radicals and illegals. But then the photo leaked, not the one Eva had found on her gate, but another pulled from a private server, time-stamped and clear. It showed her at 16, the barcode on her leg, fresh, the mark undeniable. The internet erupted. Cole's campaign collapsed overnight. He was placed on administrative leave. Federal prosecutors issued a warrant. And yet none of it brought Eva peace. Not fully. She had spoken, yes, she had been heard, but something inside her still felt unfinished. A door half open, a question unanswered. One morning she stood at Logan's window, watching fog roll in across the hills. "I want to testify," she said. Logan looked up from his coffee. "Are you sure the interview was enough to take him down? That was the goal, wasn't it? To expose him." Her voice was steady. "I don't just want exposure. I want confrontation. I want to look him in the eye when I say my name." Logan nodded. "Then I'll be right there with you." Eva contacted Mira, who arranged for her to be part of the federal hearing. As a protected witness, Eva had the right to testify anonymously, behind screens her identity shielded. But she declined. "I've been hiding long enough. I won't do it in the name of safety now." On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was quiet when Eva walked in. Logan was already seated in the gallery, eyes never leaving her. She wore a plain black dress, sleeves to her wrists, neckline high. No makeup, no jewelry, just her and her name. When the judge called her forward, she stood without hesitation. "State your name for the record, Eva Maria Martinez Solano." The courtroom murmured. She took her seat, adjusted the microphone, and began. She told them everything. The day she crossed the border, the van, the facility. The man who asked for her name, then told her it didn't matter. The fire, the mark. She showed them the scar, rolling up her hem, slowly, deliberately, until the courtroom saw the truth the world had once hidden. She didn't cry. Her voice didn't shake. When the defense attorney tried to dismiss her as unstable, she met his eyes and said, "I'm not here to be believed. I'm here to be recorded. Truth doesn't need permission to exist." The courtroom fell into silence. When she stepped down, Logan was waiting just outside the double doors. She walked straight into his arms. "I said it," she whispered. "And I heard you," he said. And so did they. That night they returned home to find her sketchbook filled with notes she didn't write, slipped through the mail slot, dozens of pages, letters from other girls, other women, survivors, some signed, others anonymous, all saying the same thing: "Thank you for going first." Eva sat on the floor and wept, not from grief but from the strange weight of being seen, being believed, being the voice that cracked the silence open. Logan sat beside her and held her hand. "You changed everything." She looked at him through tears. "No, we did." A month passed. Cole was indicted on multiple counts, including human trafficking conspiracy and obstruction of justice. More names surfaced: mid-level officials, private contractors, silent partners who had signed documents without reading them, or who had looked the other way, while lives like Eva's were processed, branded, erased. A network that once felt untouchable was beginning to splinter under the pressure of exposure. But for Eva, justice didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like silence, like mornings when she could open the blinds without flinching, like walks through the city without her heart racing every time a man in uniform passed. It felt like choosing what to do with her time and not living in fear of how others would use it. One morning, Logan found her standing in the sunroom, staring at a blank canvas. "What are you going to paint next?" he asked. She touched the edge of the frame gently. "Something that doesn't start with pain." That afternoon, she returned to the community center, where she had first asked Mira for help and offered to volunteer. Within a week, she was helping teach art classes to immigrant women. Some newly arrived, others long settled but still afraid to speak. She shared her story in pieces, never more than what she could give, always from a place of strength. "I'm not a survivor," she told them once. "I'm a witness. There's a difference. A survivor escapes. A witness remembers." Logan visited the center once and watched from the back as Eva guided a young girl through painting her first landscape. She didn't know he was there. She was laughing light and unguarded, the way she never had been before. That evening he brought her a gift, a pendant necklace, simple, elegant, engraved with her full name. She stared at it for a long time before placing it around her neck. "It's the first time I've worn my name." "You should never have had to hide it," Logan said. She looked at him, eyes soft. "And now I don't have to." Later that night, as they lay in bed, Eva spoke into the darkness. "If I hadn't fallen that day in the bathroom, if you hadn't lifted my dress," Logan turned toward her, "I would have found out eventually. You were never invisible to me." She was quiet a long time, then said, "Do you still see it when you look at me?" "The scar." He thought for a moment. "Yes, but not like you think. It's not what defines you, but it's part of what made you. It reminds me you lived." She smiled, eyes closed. "I'm starting to believe that too." In the days that followed, Logan continued working with Mira and other advocates. to push for reforms in private detention oversight. He never spoke for Eva. He didn't need to. She had her own voice now, and it carried louder than his ever could. One night she placed a finished painting in his office. It showed a woman walking across a bridge at dawn fog behind her light ahead. The title written at the bottom was simple, "Not Property." He looked at her and whispered, "You've come all the way through." Eva shook her head gently. "No, I'm just beginning." Spring arrived quietly, the kind that didn't announce itself but crept in, through open windows and morning sunlight on hardwood floors. Eva stood barefoot in the garden, tending to a row of lavender she had planted herself, the scent rising around her like memory. Logan watched her from the porch, a mug of coffee in hand, the warmth of it grounding him in the stillness they had built. They didn't speak much in the mornings now. They didn't need to. Some connections lived better in silence. That afternoon, a letter arrived addressed to Eva. It bore the seal of the Department of Homeland Security. Logan watched her fingers shake as she opened it, her eyes scanning the document quickly, then slowing. Her breath caught. She looked up at him, stunned. "They approved my residency." Her voice broke on the last word. Logan stepped forward, taking the letter gently, reading it himself to be sure. It was real. Permanent residency granted under special survivor provisions. Her name was printed clearly at the top. No aliases, no numbers, no codes, just Eva Maria Martinez Solano. She laughed through tears, and he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "You're free," he whispered. She nodded against him. Finally. That evening they sat together on the balcony, watching the city turn gold with sunset. Eva leaned her head on Logan's shoulder. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we never met?" He smiled. "All the time." She tilted her head. "And I would have built more walls, buried myself in work. Let the world pass by without ever touching it." "And you," she looked out at the sky, "I probably would have kept folding sheets and scrubbing kitchens, trying not to be seen, trying to stay small enough to survive." He reached for her hand. "And now I want to take up space. I want to be loud when I laugh. I want to walk into rooms with my head high." Logan kissed her temple. "Then do it. Every damn day." Weeks passed filled with quiet joys. Cooking together, painting late at night, sitting under warm blankets during thunderstorms. Logan started taking weekends off for the first time in years. Eva taught full-time at the community center. Their home was filled with art, with warmth, with unspoken promises. One morning, Eva found Logan in the sunroom, staring out at the hills. He turned when she entered, something soft in his expression. "I want to show you something," he said. He led her to the edge of their property, to a small hill that overlooked the city. There, staked into the ground, was a simple sign: "Future site of Solano House, a nonprofit safe space for survivors of trafficking." She stared at it, blinking. "You did this?" "No, we did. Together." Her voice cracked. "I never thought I'd get to be part of building something." Logan looked at her. "You're not just part of it. You are it." That night they lay in bed, the windows open, to the sound of crickets and wind. Eva turned to him. "I still carry it, you know. All of it. The fear the nights I flinch at shadows the guilt when I feel happy." Logan brushed hair from her face. "Then let's carry it together." She closed her eyes and whispered, "I'm not property. I'm not silence. I'm not broken." He held her tighter. "No, you're everything they tried to destroy and couldn't. You're fire that refused to go out. The world may never fully understand what she endured, but in that home, in that life they chose together, Eva was no longer a story of survival. She was a story of reclamation. And Logan, the man who once only understood control and strategy, had learned that the most radical thing he could ever do was stay. Stay when it got hard. Stay when it got quiet. Stay when all he could offer was presence. And sometimes that was more than enough.